Good evening, Danvers. Welcome to the Topics of the Town News, and this will be our special report for the Danvers government and government in action. What we want to do is we want to explore what, who, when, and how we get involved in our government. I'm Mark Zuberek, and today I have a special guest with me, Selectman Matthew Duggan. Welcome.
Thank you, Mark, for inviting me on your show, and I look forward to spending the next hour with you discussing this important topic.
Well, I just want to welcome you and the audience, and this is our second special report. And residents have asked the question, who really runs our town government? What type of government do we have? When and how does our government work? How does an average resident get involved? And who really runs this town? There's a lot of misconceptions, but the town has placed all this information on the website, but information is not readily available, or you have to go and search deeply into the web pages. Therefore, this presentation. I wanted to bring this to our audience because of my favorite clip that I want to show you. And this is Albert Einstein that I've used on many shows. And the quote is, "I fear the day that technology will surpass our human interaction. The world will have a generation of idiots." And I think it's so appropriate that Albert said this so many years ago. The agenda and opinions are solely by the Topics of the Town host, guests, contributors, and commentators. This is the third part of a series focusing on town government. Part one was the town meeting and the town government, how it functions under the town meeting agenda. The second part, which we're doing right now, is the Board of Selectmen and the Town Manager Act and how that interfaces and what roles and responsibilities there are. The third part, which we already filmed, is the school committee, the superintendent, and the library trustees and the library director. Now, if you noticed on the organizational chart, every single one of these roles that we'll be talking about, or we have talked about, reports back to the representative town meeting. And ultimately, it all goes to the voters because we are all elected or have been elected by the voters of this town, and we serve the voters themselves and not our own personal issues that we may have. The town seal is exactly what I want to summarize this whole government that we have, and the town seal represents what kind of government we really have. So Jack, if you can put up the town seal, we have, this is the purest of all democracies, the strongest of all citadels of civil liberty, the town meeting. Town of Danvers was incorporated in 1757, and that was all done with the king unwilling. Therefore, we have become independent, but we have rules and regulations that we operate under. Quotes, and I use a quote every so often, and the quote related to this discussion today is, "A leader is a shepherd. He stays behind the flock, letting the most nimble go out ahead, whereupon the others follow, not realizing that all along They are being directed from behind. So this sort of explains to me the role of a selectman who selectmen and select women who are the leaders, the mothers and fathers of the Danvers. And that is a quote that I've been using in relation to this. So, the Board of Selectmen is a established law, basically. The Town Charter and the Town Manager Act established the constitution, really, of the town government. So what I want to do is I want to just explore a few questions that I've developed. And Danvers voters, general organization chart, selectman, town manager, appointed by the Board of Selectmen. So the town government in itself, as it relates to selectmen, are done by the town charter. And what does it take to be a selectman, and what does it take to establish that role? Because you are in a leadership role, and that's what I think we need to understand.
Yep. So I can give you my perspective. A member of the select board offers a vision, a strategic vision, and that's often implemented by the town manager. The town manager, to be clear, is the runs the day-to-day operations of the town. That's not the select boards under their purview.
Well, we have 5 selectmen, or select board members. I'm always being corrected, but I still believe it's selectmen. And the selectmen, there are 5 of you. And how does one get enough courage to run for office? And how often do you have to run? And what are the stipulations of becoming a selectman?
Okay. Well, I can just offer you my perspective. I think everyone has their own thoughts about what would compel them to want to become a selectman. For me personally, it began with my involvement in town meeting and with the Danvers Rail Trail back maybe 2003. So I think that's one of the key aspects of not only wanting to become a selectman, but actually having it come to fruition, right? You need to have a strong civic participation, and also in that sense, I was a board member of the Danvers Family Festival. I also helped shepherd the Danvers Rail Trail in the early days when there was a considerable amount of either apathy or opposition to the concept of building a rail trail through downtown. And I was also a town meeting member before being a selectman, 15-year town meeting member. So that gave me, I think, some insight into what makes an effective select board, and also just in general a town government that actually really gets to the heart of how people expect a town to be run.
It
And
reflects
it affects the quality of life
Right.
that the town government can instill.
Well, there's, Matthew, one thing that I have learned on this seat in the last 3 shows is that I have a copy of The Way It Is in Danvers, and it's a 1975 version of the League of Women Voters handbook, which defines and explains our government. And I'd like to just read one little paragraph. The people elect the selectmen to oversee the non-school parts of local government. The Board of Selectmen makes traffic regulations and is the town's licensing commission. The selectmen conduct hearings on many subjects, such as unruly dogs, and we've had those instances, They study and make recommendations to the town meeting on such subject as whether and how to attract more industries to the town, how to dispose of our solid waste and sewage, water filtration, and all the other big problems a community will have or must have. They also appoint the town accountant, members of the Board of Appeals, election officers, and the town manager, most importantly. So I found that this was a booklet that I dug up with Richard Trask, who's our historian, and he gave this to me because he knew what I wanted to do with this program. And what I wanted to do is present it to the residents of Danvers of how does our government really work.
Right.
So in summary, your role as selectman was you decided to run for the Board of Selectmen because you wanted to, and I hate the term give back, you wanted to get involved in the actual activities of the town.
Yeah, I saw it as a challenge, and I thought I'm suited for this role. I make decisions and say things that I think constituents may not want to hear, but they need to hear, especially with budgets and policies that should be implemented. You mentioned some of the activities that select board members are involved with: dog licenses, liquor licenses. If you go to our meetings, you'll see many mundane agenda items that revolve around like, should there be parking for 15 minutes, or should a telephone pole be located in a special location? But there's a more strategic activity that also takes place often behind the scenes, and I just wanted to give you a couple of examples of things that are on our plate at the moment, if I may be able to just kind of give several examples. So the first thing that I wanted to mention is Resilient Danvers. It's called the Casper Plan, and that is it's a pathway to sustainable future, a kind of a green approach to how Danvers can change the way that they have, especially town government, about the way that they engage in day-to-day activities. So CASPER stands for the Climate Action, Sustainability, Preservation, and Resiliency Plan. And one of the key things that it focuses on is electrification, to get away from internal combustion engines, to make our schools greener, to rely more on solar and wind power generation. And that was initiated several years ago, and the Select Board basically just has kind of reviewed it, the draft, and has made a few suggestions about how to modify it slightly. But that's going to be, I think, approved in the near future.
But when you're elected townwide, basically, so you represent 28,000 people.
Correct.
And what has happened is that we have a rolling wave of two selectmen every year plus one the third year, and they rotate their positions. If they get reelected, they go back on the board. If they don't get elected, somebody else comes in.
Right.
So the issues that I have had, and full disclosure, I was on the Board of Selectmen back in 95 to 2000 or 2001.
Right.
And I know the drill. The thing is that the Board of Selectmen has become a fixture. And what I think what this show is trying to do as well is to attract more people of how to get involved and run for the Board of Selectmen.
Yeah.
And the Board of Selectmen is an important position. However, it is mundane and it is bureaucratic, but it does give the town manager, who you appoint as the board, the direction that you want the town to move forward towards.
That's correct. And so again, this Casper report, there's a parallel effort called Strategic Danvers that is also in the process. That has more to do with a guide to growth. We're seeing significant growth on the North Shore and in surrounding communities that have direct impact on Danvers. We have a major project over in Maple Square that's part of this plan, and we need to understand how we can adapt to changes that are being kind of inflicted upon us.
Right.
Some changes are positive. Yeah.
On us.
Well,
Not
sometimes
inflicted.
they feel like they're inflicted, and then also, just to ensure that the high quality of life, we maintain that. It's why people move to Danvers, and why why they choose to live here, and so we want to make Danvers a place that's attractive, and it's always a work in progress, I think.
Sometimes people don't understand that even the Board of Selectmen, just like the school committee, operates under state law as well. So the town charter establishes the positions and the roles of each one of the managers, which selectmen are part of the management team. However, the guiding light for our town is the town charter. And the town charter establishes the 5 positions for the Board of Selectmen, elected townwide, 5 members of the school committee who are elected townwide, library trustees elected townwide, and I don't know if there's 7 or 9 anymore. But the major legislative body is the town meeting. And the town meeting has the final say about anything you as a selectman propose or decide, or the school committee proposes or decides. So the town meeting is the most important element of our government, but the selectmen do the bidding for the residents of what are we going to be when we grow up. And this town has been in existence forever, and there's been a lot of changes.
Right. Well, there's guardrails that dictate what selectmen can do, who they can appoint, and what their role is. But you're correct about town meeting. It is the purest form of democracy, but it requires participation and
Right.
engagement. I mean, if you were only showing up at town meeting once a year and that's that's how you limit your input, that's not really an effective way to run the town.
Well, many of the selectmen or select women that come out of the finance committee or out of town meeting, or even from the school board, sometimes they come across that vote to get elected, the need to get elected. They have an interest. But you're right. Town meeting is 144 town meeting members plus the 5 selectmen, and they are voting as well. So what is the selectman actually, let's say you get elected, what responsibilities and authority do you have? And the primary one, I believe, is appointment of the town manager.
Yep, well, the current town manager was hired before I joined the board, but
Right.
we do annual performance reviews and offer feedback. I think it probably should be more frequent. I mean, most jobs I've had in the last 20 years, you had quarterly reviews,
Right.
and then you had a final annual performance review. That gives you guidance. I mean, everyone needs feedback on their day-to-day
On their role,
activities. Yeah,
right.
because that's they're working for the select board. The select board is required to kind of give guidance and, and give them ratings so that they understand, oh, this may be an area that I need to improve on. But
Yep.
The key is to make that a useful tool by giving honest feedback. If you just give 5 as being the highest number, if you give 5s across the board, you're not adding any value.
I know that very well. I've been there and I've done that. One of the things that I noted on here is there's a Selectman's Handbook, which is provided or developed by the MAA.
Yes, that's quite a comprehensive document.
And that really gives you guidance in regard to what you can and you cannot do. You cannot be aggressive. A lot of the things that happen with the Board of Selectmen is convincing the other boards that this is the right thing to do. And it's negotiations. And it happens at the table, but a lot of it happens with the pressure from the public that comes your way.
Yeah. It's often like you would see in Congress or at the State House. You have conflicting viewpoints that at the end of the day, it should never be personal, right? You should be doing what is best for the constituents, and that often doesn't happen. Not often, but it occasionally happens.
So the primary role of the Board of Selectmen is to appoint the town manager, who is the chief executive officer of the town, and basically the Board of Selectmen, or the board, delegates their responsibility to the town manager because they hired him, they can fire him or her, and they deserve to be heard from the board of what direction the town wants to go.
Yeah.
The other appointment that the Board of Selectmen has is the town accountant. Now that's embedded in the town charter and the town manager act.
Yeah.
The town charter and the town manager act are one and the same thing.
Are they okay?
I've been told that so many times, but one goes back to 1949 and the other one is updated. The last time it was updated was in 1993 or
97,
94.
I think.
Well, that's when it was finalized.
By the
That's when
State House,
Pat
yeah.
Frazier was
Yeah.
on the board with me. Yes. And that thing, the town charter, as I noted in the past, needs revisions and updates to reflect
Right.
reality. So, the town accountant is a role of a budgetary watchdog, basically, for the selectmen. And that accountant should, and according to the charter, report to the Board of Selectmen.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
That is not happening. I know that.
I don't see that happening.
Well, the thing is that that role has changed since our former town manager, Wayne Marquis, retired. And that role was always very front and forward. But recently that role has disappeared, and I think we need to somehow get that revitalized.
Yeah.
But that's a role that has happened.
But if we look a little bit closer at the Town Manager Act, it silos the power of the town manager to make numerous appointments without really the input of town meeting. You mentioned town meeting several times as being kind of the,
Ultimate.
yeah, the ultimate representatives. But
Yep.
that's, I wanted to use an example of the town of Needham. A friend of mine lives there, and she shared with me the number of positions that are elected. And I'll just read off a few. The Board of Assessors, the Board of Health, the Park and Recreation Commission, the Town Clerk, most importantly, the planning board.
There
The
you
planning board is elected. And so, in Danvers, we have planning board members from the 90s serving. It's almost like a position for life. And we had an appointment recently where I asked the person, "Have you ever been to a planning board meeting?" And he said, "Well, I saw one on YouTube one time." So we're making appointments that don't really benefit the town, the residents of town. The planning board, for example, makes decisions that impact the quality of life forever. Some of these decisions that they make, especially some of these large projects. So, when you mentioned revisiting the Town Manager Act, I think it's almost 30 years. It needs to have a kind of be refreshed.
Well, I think that's time has come for that, and I don't know if the Board of Selectmen or the Select Board, Select Board is should be more in favor of revising this charter. And there was a proposal at town meeting to update and set up a committee to review the town charter for the town.
Yeah, I think.
And it did not move forward because nobody wanted to get involved.
Was that something the town moderator was going to create that subcommittee?
That was the point of, I made the proposal, and the town moderator would appoint a 7 to 9 member of the town meeting
Mm-hmm.
and establish a review committee for the town charter. And the thing is that everybody is so accustomed to holding on to the little bit of power that they have, and they don't want to let go. And as you remember in the past, I don't know if you go back that far, but I do, is the members that were appointed to a lot of these committees, because all of the committees except for the Zoning Board of Appeals, and I don't know what other one is not appointed by the town manager, but every one of those committees is appointed by the town manager. So we have the flavor of the town manager instead of the Board of Selectmen.
Yeah. Well, it's a consolidation of power, and I think that we're not really able to fully vet these candidates to really know that what their experience is and kind of what their demeanor will be. What are they looking to become a member of one of these boards or commissions because it looks good on their resume, or because they truly can offer some value?
And we should probably introduce term limits on the positions as well. 20 years is way too long. And that is happening all around with our committees and our boards.
Yeah, select board as well.
That's right.
But that's, that
school committees in the same situation.
Yeah. That falls upon the voters, though, at the end of the day.
Well, there you go. We go right back to the top, which is the voter.
Infinite loop.
And the only time voters decide to change things is when their pocketbook is being hurt. So, I have another quote in here, and I'm going to, read it off because it's very appropriate to what we're talking about. Is the greatest leader is not necessarily the one who does the greatest things. He is the one that gets the people to do the greatest things. And that's a quote from Ronald Reagan, of all people. That's what the Board of Selectmen and the town manager should be doing, is to incite these individuals that want to participate. And sometimes it's not by application like it's been going on for the last 6 or 7 years. Oh, send an application in and we'll figure out where to put you. We need the Board of Selectmen and the town manager in collusion to determine who is the best person to be appointed to those committees.
Yeah, that's not happening.
I know that. But that's how it should
I
be
think
happening.
it's not only is it apathy from that reduces the size of the pool of candidates. It's we're just like, we're happy to have someone that's interested in
Right.
doing it, so let's appoint them.
That's
That's you end up with mediocrity. I
That's
think.
no reason to get appointed, and that's exactly what's going on. So, I have a few items on here that I want to get into, but the Town Manager Act appoints, and it is all spelled out in this document that is the town meeting handbook. Basically,
Right.
the best form of government is town meeting, and this has been prepared back in 97 or 2001, 2002, I believe. Pat Frazier was on the initial show that I started, the presentation about town meeting, and she was involved in preparing this. And I believe that this gives you maximum information that you may want.
Yeah.
However, it is difficult to find or get a copy of it even.
Yeah, I don't think it's on the website.
Well, I don't know if it's on a web. I don't care, because I do not like the website, because the website is very difficult to get through, and I'm not a computer jockey.
No, you're right.
So
It's the new improved website that's not really user friendly.
That's right. So that's why I want to discuss these things with the individuals that are actually involved.
Yeah.
And the questions that have been brought up by the residents, by the voters, is I hear that all the time, because I go out and talk to people. And the Board of Selectmen, I don't know if they go and talk to people, but you have to, because you're elected
No,
by the
they come find me.
Oh, that's right. That's good.
They have my number.
So the key things that we're talking about is there's a general organizational chart, Jack, if we can have that again. That is a summary of all the responsibilities by the voters to the elected officials, or the elected officials to the voters. However, I've also been presented with an org chart from the town hall that shows all of the departments, but it's very small up on top where the voters really act. So we have a government that's prepared. There you go. We have a government that's divided into those four major components, and the town moderator processes or conducts the town meeting. And the selectmen are the ones that present the warrant to the town meeting.
Right.
And that's a major responsibility of the Board of Selectmen, because that warrant contains all the wishes and, wants of residents and from the administration, but it also contains the infamous budget. The budget in this town is what, $140 million right now, roughly?
Yep.
And the thing is that people don't understand that all this happens at the town meeting, and the only time you have any discussion about it is during the selectmen's review
The finance committee.
and the finance committee.
Right.
And the finance committee is not elected, they are appointed. And what sense does that make? I mean, I don't know. They're supposed to be independent.
Yeah, well, their decisions are important, because their
Right.
decisions are the motion on the floor at town meeting. And so that's what town meeting is voting on.
But if you've, my interest in budgets and warrant articles is very extensive, because I've gone through it many, many times. one of the things that you do not find is many town meeting members or residents, just voters, at these review meetings or the finance committee meeting. They have no interest. I don't know why. And the thing that concerns me is that this is so important because every single one of us is paying a high tax rate, high value of properties we have in this town, and the assessments don't go down, they always go up, and people are not concerned yet. So that's why I wanted to make sure that people understand what the Board of Selectmen can do, how can they handle the situation, or what can be done.
Well, they can have input. It's surprising how fast you can spend $140 million at town meeting.
15 minutes.
There's very little discussion on any of the warrant articles. It's just, move the question and let's see if we can get out of here in less than an hour or something. It's
and supposedly that's because it's been reviewed and revised through the process of the Board of Selectmen, then the Finance Committee, and then it comes to town meeting. But every year we have the Board of Selectmen sitting there with the town meeting members, and they all vote everything up.
Yeah.
And the thing is, no questions.
They leave it to others to make the decisions for them.
Well,
I mean, it's unclear to me why they are even town meeting members. What's the point if they're not going to participate in the process?
That's what we want to do, is encourage the participation, because it's very important, not to just us, but to our children.
It's even more important now because we have potential budgetary shortfalls for FY 2025. We have a budget review, budget conference committee meeting next month to it's kind of the third iteration in the past 3 or 4 months. And they're looking at ways to generate additional revenue to plug some gaps from the Essex Tech assessment, special ed out of district, and also for this new expensive trash contract that we've just implemented.
I have a copy of the trash contract and the cost of the barrels, and I'm going to be doing a special on the show in regard to that. But I'll tell you what the solution is.
You can find areas that are inefficient and
No, cut spending.
well, that's what I mean.
That's the whole situation. And
And
the problem is that the town government and the Board of Selectmen, and I promised myself I wasn't going to do this, but they are in the habit of spending every penny that's there.
Right.
And I know that we have some savings accounts here and there, but the solution to the conference committee, cut your spending.
Yeah. And
That's the whole
that
thing.
means cut in services, and so
No, it's cutting across the board.
to every
Everything.
department.
Yes, sir.
That's a cut in service.
And it might want to start with cutting the salaries of the Board of Selectmen, because they just increased. What are the salaries of the Board of
Well,
Selectmen
it's
now?
not a salary; it's a stipend. I think
It's a salary.
3,000.
It's taxable too.
It is taxable.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's 3,000, and
I think
then,
it might be $3,500.
Yeah, the chairman gets a bump on top of that, so
Yeah.
that's about it. Okay, so now our town government, under the supervision and policies of the Board of Selectmen, is made up of many, many departments. And this sort of falls right into my cutting the budget. Finance director, we never had one before. We had the accountant and
That's
functioned as the finance director and the accountant. Accounting here is another department. Assessing, purchasing, town clerk. Now there's an important position that I think we all do not rely enough on, because the town clerk has a very important function in regards to keeping records and licenses.
Collecting
and
revenue.
Collecting, yes, that's right. Information technology. That's another department that's evolved over the last 5 years. Assistant town manager. Why do we need an assistant town manager? We have a very expensive town manager in place. Communications, DEI is another new role that has been introduced. And that's all I'm going to say about it. Human resources, land use and community services. That used to be planning and development. Inspectional services. We have inspectional services still in existence, but it's no longer as extensive as it was before. Health department. Natural resources. Recreation. Senior social services. Veteran services. So we have quite a bit of responsibility that goes to the town manager, and then you, as the Board of Selectmen, have the policies in place of what are the wants and needs of the town.
Well, I don't know if we make the decisions. We know about them, but we don't really have much input on them, I don't think.
But should we?
Yeah, we should have input on all these. We should have input on where the money's going to all these, and not just the select board. The town meeting member
Right.
needs to, pull back the covers and see how much money is being spent. Is it, and don't compare us with other surrounding towns. That's not really the right barometer, right?
We are unique in itself,
Yeah.
because we have such a industrial commercial base, residential base, and then we have other revenues that come in from the restaurants and
the commercial,
commercial. So, but the key functions that we are to provide are fire, police, and public works. The rest are subsidiaries to those
Well,
departments.
There's things that you have to have, and
Right.
then there's things that are nice to have.
Right.
So,
And the question always comes up, who makes those decisions?
well,
And in this case, what I'm seeing, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's done by the town management, because that's how the Board of Selectmen has decided to delegate that
I think
authority.
it's the town manager and then the directors that work for him.
That's right.
Those are the key players in constructing the annual budget. Right.
Now-
So we never see budgets modified that I recall. It's like either you take it or leave it. I mean, you don't really see modifications on the floor of town meeting where they want to kind of tweak the numbers. The numbers are what they are, I guess.
Well, no. What I believe, and this is my own interpretation, is that the budget is prepared with a wish list from each department that's higher than what the actual budget is going to be at the end. And that's where the negotiations take place. But the problem is that we're overspending, and that's where the issues come out. And now we're going to a conference committee to decide how are we going to generate revenue from our taxpayers. That's
Yeah.
what it comes down to.
Yeah, and there's a limited choices. So the one on the table now is the trash fee,
Well-
$200 annual trash fee. But that's low hanging fruit. What are we going to do next year? We won't have that option
No,
next year.
that's
So these are it's portrayed as this is a strategic budget kind of meeting, and but it's not. It's less than a year is not a strategic outlook.
No.
You need to be planning 5 years out, 10 years out. Where are we going to be generating this revenue as our, retirement, these unfunded liabilities become more pronounced, inflationary pressures. It's
Well, those are the kinds of decisions and considerations that the Board of Selectmen or the Select Board, I have to correct myself all the time, Select Board,
So,
they need to consider that in their deliberations when they're discussing certain items
Yeah,
with
but
the town
that's-
management.
that's not something that's they have an appetite for. Most board members, I think, are trying to kind of find funds that are readily available through these fees, which are really just another form of taxation.
That's right.
But when it comes time to actually talk about cut in services, which is, I think, inevitable, it's not palatable because that is a stain on their legacy.
That's right.
And so, but that's, the only alternative, the kind of the elephant in the room is, either debt override or debt
Well,
exclusion.
Well, it's been proposed several times, and other tax increases have been proposed several times, and they all have been defeated by the voters in this town.
Yeah. But it's not anything to be proud of. I mean, other towns do it. I mean, if you have a
Well-
big project like the new DPW yard, that's something that you may want to, fund it with an exclusion.
Well, that's a decision that the Board of Selectmen are going to have to make,
Yeah,
and the thing is, there's no appetite for that.
it's not politically
Expedient.
Well,
Well, the one thing that I want to do is I want to conclude this thing with, we have two major enterprise funds. Maybe two? Yeah, just two. Electric Municipal Light Board, which is a 100-year-old establishment that's been supporting and providing power to the residents of Danvers for over 100 years.
the oldest municipal power plant
It
in
is.
the state.
And you know what? It is very efficient from what I've seen, because I've watched that. Because being in the electric generation business, I know what goes on in there. So they don't like me coming because I ask questions. But that's okay. That's what it's supposed to be. There are very few people, residents, that go to the municipal light board meetings. And that's where the decisions are made.
Yeah.
The other one is the Water and Sewer Board. That is a function that's been provided to Danvers for, I don't know how many years. It's over 100 years. And that is an enterprise fund, so it's self-supporting through the fees, or the metered fees. And it seems to be functioning very well. The issues that I have is, are these establishments sustainable? And that's a big source of revenue for the Municipal Light Board and for the Water and Sewer Commission, because they support themselves through the fees.
Yeah,
that
self-supporting, but sometimes there are projects in town that are funded by these accounts that may not be, they may be legal, but they don't appear appropriate. For example, putting in traffic lights and
Well-
funding road construction.
Well, that's been explored in the past, and it's finally stopped. They're not doing that anymore, and that's an accomplishment in itself.
Well,
So-
I think it's kudos to you for kind of putting the spotlight on it and showing that, hey, this is not what is an appropriate use of revenue from our electric bills.
The people that are paying their electric bills are supporting traffic lights on intersections and building of those intersections. So, that's fine, but I want to go back to the roles and responsibilities of the Board of Selectmen or Select Board, or your role. What are the major responsibilities and authority of the Board of Selectmen? What are the major ones? I think we talked about them all, but
Well, we talked about them in the beginning. I mean, if you're there's the short term here and now, like issuing alcohol licenses, um, making sure the streets are safe. The highway commissioners of Danvers, and again, you mentioned they create the annual warrant,
right.
and that involves also the budgeting. They're the group that has the first look at the proposed draft budget for the coming fiscal year, so that's an important role. But I think just the long-term strategic vision, like what is Danvers going to look like in 2050?
Right.
Like can we agree that most cars will be electrified then, and what can we do to kind of promote that use? I think so. That's, the leaders need to provide a vision that people can get behind and say that's what we want Danvers to look like down the road. We want, the growth that we're going to have is going to be kind of high density in the downtown area. We want open space. We're going to find open space and protect it. Those are things that don't happen in the near term, right? They require the vision, and then the select board and others need to build consensus to kind of get there.
It's called strategic planning, and that's the long-term vision that you as a select board member needs to address, because you're a reflection of the rest of the town. So, and I'm going to repeat this again, but I have to. This is exactly what we're talking about.
Ronnie?
No, the greatest leader is not necessarily the one who does the greatest things. He is the one that gets the people to do the greatest things. And that's where the Board of Selectmen is instrumental in getting the town manager and his department heads, who are well paid and well versed in what has to be done, and we need to get that direction straight.
And it's almost, to give credit to where it's due, I think it's almost like the opposite. I mean, it's you have, like, for example, the DPW kind of spearheading this Casper effort about how to, how we're going to become more green in terms of a limitation on the burning of fossil fuels and electrifying through solar panels and wind power and that type of thing. So that's kind of an initiative taken by the town departments. It's not like the select board has really kind of brought that up and asked.
Well, it was originally brought up by Dan Bennett when he introduced the subject. But yes, you're right. And one of the things that I've noticed, and I don't know where you stand on it, but everything that's done in studies like this, like that Casper report, is done through grants that are being filtered from the federal government and the state government and do this, but then they step away and then the town gets stuck paying the bills. So these are unintended consequences.
Yeah, because the grants or the projects that they provide initial funding for expire after a couple of years,
absolutely.
and so we're left holding the bag. So we have to be careful about what we wish for.
There you go. Now, that's a good quote. You have to use that one. Other question that I have raised, and this one we're going to try to keep it short, is how does politics play into the role of the Board of Selectmen?
Well, I think it's politics is telling people what they want to hear, right, and not necessarily what they need to hear. And so if you kind of take the middle road and don't engage in make contentious statements or take sides on any specific issue. I think you play it safe. You can become a long-term board member and get your picture up in the Toomey room.
But what good does that do for the town? Nothing.
No, that's a self-serving
Politics,
That's
right?
a self-serving objective, and it's something that I think politicians are good at. I don't consider myself a politician.
There you go. The politicians are a dime a dozen, but the real people that influence the path forward are the ones that do the dirty work that has to happen. What should or who should try to get elected to the board? Now that's an important question because there are people that are interested, but they don't know if they qualify.
No, I think it's the more the merrier. So, I ran for selectman twice. The first time I lost to Miss Bernard, but I enjoyed the interaction with going and campaigning. I had a list of everyone who had voted in the last couple of town elections, and I went to each and every house and either left a flyer or tried to speak with the residents. And I think it's if you enjoy troubleshooting and trying to make Danvers a better place, if you have issues that you think that, hey, I could solve that. But I think everyone should take a look at the opportunity, and if they feel it's right for them, they should give it a shot. There's no harm in
the thing that people are afraid of, running and then not winning, and it's not always about winning. A lot of times, what happens is when you campaign and you develop the flavor of the discussions that take place with many residents, not just a few, you get incentivized to move forward.
No, I think it's worth the effort, and it's de Tocqueville was a French writer in the mid-1800s, visited America to see what democracy looked like, and his takeaway was that in a democracy you get the government you deserve, and so with the limited number of candidates, you often don't get the best choices.
Jack, can you throw up my Tasmanian Devil clip, because I think this is so important, and I want to thank you for coming and discussing the selectman position and how the government works on the selectman side. Jack, if we can throw up the Tasmanian Devil. I miss the good old days. Remember when you could actually have an opinion without offending somebody. That's what the whole show is about. We don't want to offend anyone, but we are not afraid to speak our piece. And that's what's been driving me to stay on this show now almost 20 years.
Yeah.
So I want to thank you very much for participating, and I hope I didn't, disrupt your day too much. But
No, that's fine. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
questions are relevant, and the questions are still coming through every time I speak to any group or anybody. And, it needs to be done. We need to discuss these things face to face. And hopefully the audience will have an opportunity to listen to our comments. So, Mr. Duggan, Selectman Duggan, thank you very much.
All right, Mark. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Thank you, and we'll have our 3-part series together by the end of next week, and I'll start showing that in sequence of when they were developed. So thank you, Danvers, and we'll see you next week.